Hi beautiful people, welcome to a new video. How are you doing? This is Mecca. This is Mecca's garden and healing journey. So I grow a lot of tomatoes. Last year we had about enough for about 7 months and we grew a lot. We grew about 80 plants. So this year we decided to start early. So I'm going to share with you what I'm doing this year to try and get enough tomatoes to last me a year. So obviously my tomatoes are a bit too big for this time of the year. This is just the 6th of May and we have huge plants. Not many people have them this big. I started these in February. Now the ideal time to start your tomatoes should be a bit later, middle of March, ideally in the UK. But we have blight. We've had blight for 2 years in a row, and blight is a disease that affects the yield and actually kills the tomatoes just overnight. So that would affect how much you harvest at the end of the day. So this height is a decent height to have. Even if you have it smaller, don't panic. Now guys, it's raining, it's gonna be thunderstorm, but I really plan to shoot this video. So excuse the rain, excuse the sound of the water in the conservatory, but I'll shoot here and I'll probably voice over most of it. Okay, so when I start my tomatoes, I always have eggshells. Now we store our eggshells for a long period because eggshells are essential in helping the tomato, calcium hungry plant. I also take the lower leaves off and bury quite deep. This way the legginess and the length of the tomato is reduced and is a lot more manageable as a seedling. Okay, now doing this, it's optional. Okay, but burying it deep also helps with water retention and also helps you get a sturdier plant because roots will develop on the stem. Okay, so this is something I think you should bear in mind when you're doing this. Now also, to do my eggshells, I prefer crushing them into fine powder like this. Fine powder is the best way to make it bioviable for your plants to utilize and the microbes. So I use a blender that I don't use for food. This is an old blender jug. I also have bones that have been in the burner and they are actually quite brittle. I can snap them with my fingers. If they're not this brittle, don't use your blender. They could damage your blender, they could break it, and they could cause harm to you. All right, so this is something I always do. I have bone meal and I also have eggshells that I add into each tomato planting hole to give my tomatoes the best boost to help them absorb and make the most of these minerals and nutrients that we have additional. Did you know that today's plants that are conventionally grown are hugely depleted in so many essential micronutrients? Now, micronutrients are important because those are the things our body needs to function effectively. When I have blended my bones and the eggshell, not my bones, you know what I mean, the bones, I put it into the soil with also well-rotted manure, which is full of worms. It's brimming with worms. This is like what I have made at home. If you don't have homemade compost, just use whatever you have. Even chicken pellets is perfectly fine. Adding something extra into the hole, the planting hole, makes a huge difference because this plant roots, obviously they're spread outside the hole, but they have this initial boost directly next to them and it supports the plant better. Sometimes just topping the soil is fine. I also top dress with compost, but that's by the way. So now it's time to plant in this ginormous tomato plant here. This is the biggest I've ever had tomatoes this time of the year, mind you, but I decided to do this intentionally because I want to beat the blight. I want to have a small plant, more fruits for my family and I before we get blight or before the season is over. Our growing season in the UK is really short. Anyway, people in the Americas, I know someone that grows only like 15 plants and it feeds her whole family and it's so much tomatoes. I'm so jealous. But this is what we have to do here and I'm grateful we can grow some. Now, you don't have to stake this immediately. I'm staking these now just because I have this little stake to trellis them. You can stake this a little bit later. You can trellis them that way individually or stake it, in a hole. Now, I dance when I'm tired. This was a long day. I was shooting 2 videos. I was doing this and something else indoors and I was just tired. So I decided to dance and it helps relieve me. So are you one of those people that dance when you're tired? Let me know in the comments. I'm not a very good dancer, but it makes a difference. Now look at these tomato roots. They're so good and I'm making gaps in between my garlic bed to plant tomatoes. Garlic will be ready in a couple of months, and tomatoes will grow up until even October. So I have this same bed does two jobs every single year, and it has worked beautifully, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have you enjoyed the video? Has it added any value to you? If it has, give us a thumbs up. Let me know in the comment section your tomato growing tips or the things you are doing this year if you're growing tomatoes. Like spacing them is really important for airflow to prevent disease. Planting companions like marigold is something I also always do, and things like basil. And then obviously staking them. These are indeterminate ones. So essentially these grow up until the end of the season.